So, welcome everyone to our very first session of the Impact AI webinar series. I'm Iman Oubou. I'm the founder of Vocable, which is an AI-powered content marketing platform, but it's also a proud portfolio company of Impact AI. So I'm really excited to be co-hosting this webinar series alongside the CEO of Impact AI, Steffen. So basically our goal with this monthly series is to go beyond your typical AI buzz to bring forward insightful and tangible conversations with visionaries and innovators in the space of AI, of course, and also learning more about how AI's evolving role is in the workforce and how it impacts the workplace. So make sure you stay tuned for our upcoming sessions as well on our website, which we'll drop the link to here shortly. And also, if there are any topics that you would like to explore over the next month, feel free to drop them as well. We always love to hear people's considerations. So for today's session, we will be zooming in on the tangible impact of AI and LLMs on business processes, efficiency, and the nuances of choosing and integrating AI technologies in the workplace. And joining us is our guest of honor, Tariq Rauf, who is the founder and CEO of Qatalog, which is the AI-powered search bar for your business. So Tariq, welcome, and thanks for doing this.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to kick this off with you. And so before I hand it over to Steffen to kick it off, I just want to also flag that we will have a few minutes at the end for a Q&A session. So if you have any questions along the way, definitely feel free to drop them. You don't have to wait until the end. That way we continue monitoring and make sure we address as many of them as possible. So now I will hand it over to Steffen.
Thank you, Iman. So welcome, everybody. And Tariq, welcome. Wonderful to have you here with us on our very first Impact AI webinar. So thanks a lot for joining. Cool to have you. When I remember right, the last time you and I met, it was for dinner in London, and you showed me that evening some AI enterprise and PE cases on Qatalog, and I was super impressed. So before that evening, we were already we were already very proud investor into Qatalog, and after that evening, actually, I was very excited that we also became your customer with some of our own companies. So and rolling it out, and people are quite excited. And so why don't we kick this off and having you telling us a bit on and our audience a bit about yourself and how you got into this AI space and brought Qatalog where it is right now.
No, of course. No, firstly, thanks for putting this together and having me. I got into the world of startups about 14 years ago. I was in the early team of a couple of large startups, well, large companies now, but they were early startups then, called Hinge Health, another one called TransferWise. After which I ran global products for Prime at Amazon. And about 4 years ago, we started Qatalog to solve the problem of knowledge management broadly in enterprises and companies. And so as we sort of built into that vision and built into that problem space, it was very clear that AI was going to completely upend knowledge management and information retrieval and all that sort of stuff. So we were quite early into building into LLMs in the infrastructure. We started building pre-ChatGPT. And so we're one of the first few companies that productized LLMs into the enterprise and into a usable product. With the first launch around 2 days after ChatGPT, I believe. And this is our sort of third cycle of iterations and improvements on top of the product. We have about 25 million in funding and about 40 or so employees all over the world.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I mean, we let's dive into this a bit later also and see how Qatalog actually works. But maybe if we look a bit ahead, I think 2023 was a crazy year when we look at all the developments that happened in the AI space. Yeah. It's almost, I mean, for me at least, almost impossible to follow up on the speed of innovation, and it doesn't seem to slow down. So we are actually quite excited to hear a bit from you. So what are your predictions for the AI landscape in 2024, especially when we look a bit at it in terms of enterprise applications? So what is happening, or what do you expect to come up in the next few months?
2023 was definitely super exciting, and because it's so nascent, the playing field was just super flat. Anybody who could actually build products and build AI was sort of in rooms that they had no right to be in. You could be speaking to a Fortune 100 company, even though you were a 10-person startup, because nobody else was able to do that stuff.
Yeah.
And so as a consequence, we were also in places where we would have been more difficult in another paradigm, let's say. And so we saw a lot of interest. And I think 2023 can be summed up as a year of experimentation, as a year of like, let's throw things at the wall and see where it sticks.
Check it out, yeah.
And there were experimental budgets being allocated, the teams of 2 to 3 people, go play with something, see what you can do. But what is already starting to happen is 2024 has kicked off with very large budgets being allocated to AI. I think we're moving from an experimentation phase to we believe in it, we know there's something here, but it takes effort, it takes investment, it takes energy and collaboration to really, turn it into something meaningful. So I think 2024 has gone from 2023 experimentation to 2024 productionizing. Where is the actual ROI? Where are the actual workflows? What are the tools we need to invest in to really level up, the usage of AI in the business? And it's happening across departments. It's happening across companies, across sectors. There's not a single vertical that's been untouched with budgets being open. So it's a very exciting year, both for people that are building foundation models, but also people that are solutionizing foundation models into the enterprise. And so we're going to see a huge uptick in, we move on from chat tools, we move on from like, the LLM ideation, sort of LLM driven ideation phase to like more realistic enterprise use cases, which I'm extremely excited about. We are also enabling some of those things. And so a very, very exciting year ahead. And I think the other thing could be that we'll go past chat for sure. Like this is the year. Like ChatGPT was the sort of explosion. So everyone correlated LLMs to chat applications. LLMs can do a lot more than just chat. And so we're going to see workflows that are entirely LLM powered, that have no humans in the loop, that have no humans involved. There's no chat, there's no back and forths, but entire decisions being done in a long chain of decisions, all by LLMs. And the tooling and the enterprise readiness required to sort of deploy that is also happening. And probably the biggest AI prediction could be, and I don't know if this is a prediction, I think this is a fairly accepted outcome now, which is open source is going to finally win.
Yeah.
I think they're at the very close to the big players, and I think this year with Meta already promising a huge update in Llama 3, which I think will hopefully set a new benchmark. If not, somebody else is going to set the benchmark. The tooling, the know-how, and the innovation is happening in the open source world. So that's going to be a huge outcome that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, no, very exciting also to hear how you use it. Maybe we get to that a bit later today, and how you are actually applying it and how you take your product decision on the LLM side. Would be very interesting to hear about that. But maybe we start with also to the audience giving a bit an insight on Qatalog. I think this AI-powered search bar for enterprise, or how you call it, is your product vision and for sure one of the big business cases out there, right? So what would be your take on this, let's say, enterprise search transformation with AI? So what is this, let's say, how is this new AI chapter changing the way business are approaching data for search and retrieval? Is there, so I mean, Qatalog is a wonderful example for this. So what is your take on that? Or maybe you can give us a short impression also on how it actually works. How can we imagine that to work?
Yeah, absolutely. So enterprise search is a category that's been around for 25 years now, or maybe even 30 years. And knowledge being, companies having huge repositories of knowledge has always been the case. Some of it was on paper, some of it was on hard drives, some of it was in cloud systems. That reality hasn't changed. And we've built many tools and many systems to sort of copy all of that data into an index, look it up, and essentially have a Google search for the business in some of these enterprises. But these systems are fairly dumb. You search for a query, and if it matches in the document or in the index, then it will find a bunch of files and links, and you can go there just like a traditional sort of Google search. And it has been like that for nearly 15 years now. We had improvements in ranking algorithms, we had improvements in NLP, but it's been small incremental changes over the last 15 years, and not much has moved. But with the advent
uncountable
of
numbers of projects trying to solve that and actually just making it a little bit better, like in
yes,
the enterprise, right?
absolutely. And the tooling has also gotten a lot better. You have Elasticsearch, which is now open source. You have a whole bunch of other tools that you can use to build these systems yourself. You don't need to invent it from scratch either. But AI and LLMs have moved the needle so far that all of the systems and all of the paradigms that existed before can now be completely wiped out. To the extent that the entire legacy stack can be cleaned up and you can start from scratch, which is what we have done essentially. And so it's like, when the iPhone came, all of the prior cell phone technology was gone. The keypads were gone, antennas were gone. Phones used to have antennas on top of them. Like the iPhone started telecommunications from scratch, and they completely rethought the paradigm of how you interact with mobile phones. And so we're sort of at a similar moment, not just with search. I think with a lot of systems at work that we use are going to be completely reimagined because of one fundamental reason, which is computers can now comprehend. And it can comprehend beyond what you teach it to comprehend. And so now you build a system and then you go to a large enterprise that's a consultancy firm. It's not possible for the team that's building the system to understand what the customer wants. But you can now build systems that can fit in that context and be effective without really needing to know what the customer wants. And so that's where I think there's an interesting shift in how you build software, how you think about products, how you think about AI. It's a completely new paradigm for which there is no real parallel. So I'll give you a very quick example. Like if I open my screen, if you could confirm that you can see.
Yes, we can.
So this is Qatalog. So if I say, what are we talking about in the Impact AI webinar? Now, what this is going to do is it's going to go across all of our systems and find all of the references required to answer that question. For example, for this brief, there is a Google Doc which talks about what we're going to cover here. And it's going to go and understand what is in that document. It's going to understand the intent of my query. It's going to understand what's in there. And it's going to do this live and come back with an answer of like, this is the around tangible impacts of AI, large language models. And it's done that in real time. There's no index. There's no copy of the data held somewhere. There's no system that's like, got all this information. We have no idea what Impact AI webinar is. Our language models aren't fine-tuned to this use case. But in this scenario, I've asked for something and the system has said, we're going to go look in Google Drive. We're going to read this page. We're going to find out what the intent is and come back with an answer. And this is a sort of a quick demo, a quick live demo of how the product works. And I think this is, again, this wiped the slate clean in terms of how you do this, how enterprise search works. It did all the retrieval live. It built all the embeddings and semantic understanding live. It pieced together the documents. It understood the query. It answered the question, and workflowed that entire thing, in real time. This wasn't possible before. This was not a paradigm that existed literally 2 years ago.
No, and I also think what's interesting for our audience is that actually it keeps the authorization token of you as Tariq, right? So it doesn't give you access to any data that you aren't allowed to have access to, right?
Absolutely, exactly. And so another big problem with indexing that businesses face is you can only index commonly accessible data. So what we call shallow indexing, which is information that everybody can access, you can put into an index and people can search against it. But what about your emails? What about your private documents? What about the projects you're on? What about your communications internally that's between you and someone else? Because we do this in real time, what we do is we access these systems as you and your tokens and your authorization. So we can go and pull all of the materials that you've got access to, and cut across, deep rather than shallow, and give you the answer that you need. And everybody else in the organization, whether it's 500 people, 5,000 people, or 50,000 people, will have their permissions respected. And that's, again, a net new thing that wasn't really possible before. because we can now do this in real time, this is a net new thing that's been unlocked.
So for example, with that one that you just showed now, if I wasn't on that brief, or if someone is not part of that brief and I typed it in, I wouldn't have access to that. It wouldn't have come up.
That's correct. You wouldn't, if you don't have, because we are retrieving it in real time, even if I had just before you queried it, if I removed your access 1 millisecond before you queried it, you wouldn't see it.
So it does respect all roles and basically access as your documents have.
That's right. So it respects your existing permissions, what you have access to, and across tools, your email, your Confluences, your Asana, Monday, Notion, Google Drive, whatever else it is. We keep your access in place.
Yeah, so that's very, very impressive. So, but maybe you can also give a bit a glimpse on what kind of use cases come with this capability that you are actually providing with Qatalog, right? I think there's so many, like we talked a lot about private equity, where you combine it with some workflows. We talked about engineering drawings, which you're trying to retrieve, or which you're retrieving and answering questions against those. So I think the number of use cases is almost infinite.
But there's also a very targeted way to think about this. If you're in operations, and let's say you have your company goals and objectives and OKRs in some spreadsheet somewhere, and your policies in Confluence somewhere in terms of your benefits, your operational documents in Google Drive, you can connect to those things and give your team the ability to say, what's my OKR goal for Q3 2024? And it will go find the OKR documents, it will read it, it will find and bring it back to you. Let's say you're traveling to China. It's like, what's the company's travel policy on expenses in China? It'll find the expense documents, find the Chinese parts of it, and give the person exactly what they need without knowing where to look for them, what do I need to read, how far do I need to go. So it becomes a way to automate knowledge retrieval, not search, not just search. It's automating business processes essentially. So if you're a large enough business, you'd have, tickets and requests going into IT and HR about this stuff. You can automate all of that away. Or if you go into research and analytics, we have a couple of use cases with one of the leading online education providers and the leading travel agent in the world right now, where they have teams, 60, 80-member teams of analytics groups, where their only job is answering queries coming in, hitting Tableau, querying it, or hitting Salesforce, querying it, and returning the result back to the employee. Their SLA right now is 2 days, 3 days for each of those queries. So you can imagine teams that are in sales or marketing are held up for 2 to 3 days while these queries are being answered. What we do is we connect into Tableau, we connect into Looker, we connect into any of these tools that you've got. If you have a custom tool, we can build a connector into that as well, and answer the query immediately. How many visitors did we have in December 2023 from XYZ country? We'll be able to give that answer to the employee immediately and unlock them and improve the business operations. And so you have use cases in operations, you have use cases in HR, you have use cases in analytics and research. You also have use cases in engineering. So if you have a product requirement for a tool that you're building and you say, what are the user stories for this thing that the engineering team is building, it's going to go find the spec doc, it's going to read that spec doc, and it's going to find the user stories and give it back to the engineer. So it unlocks, again, that would have been a ping to a product manager or program manager, and then there's a back and forth that happens, and there could be multiple sources. We go find those multiple sources and say, hey, you've got multiple sources with this answer, and here they are, and give that back to the user.
So that sounds really interesting and exciting, and I could see why a lot of enterprises would want to incorporate this. But from your experience, I'm curious, because it seems that a lot of businesses are super eager to integrate AI into their operations. But what challenges have you seen, maybe even from your own experience, that businesses struggle with when it comes to the integration phase? Mm-hmm. And also, what factors should they consider when they're actually building their AI strategy?
So we see this almost every day now. We speak to customers every day. We have AI strategies thrown at us every day. And so the biggest challenge, time and time again, is not having a clear business use case. Saying we want AI in, and they'll be like, there's an AI companion or a chatbot, and be like, hopefully this drives value. But no, you need to sort of bring it back to a very clear use case that you want to automate, right? And so we've seen businesses take very complex workflows. Say we have a insurance product generation workflow, which requires reading this analyst document, requiring doing this sort of analysis on this customer base, and then producing this report, and then producing the product for that specific vertical. Or you have, say, a private equity firm that does deal memos. They need to read the incoming proposition deck or offer from the company, go and stack that against the information of all the other companies within their portfolio, and produce a deal evaluation report. So you can automate that quite clearly with AI, but you can only automate that if you set that as the goal, if that makes sense. So you need to know which parts have, very high repeatability in terms of human effort, which does not require too much, bringing in insights from across the business, and is information sitting within the systems, and what can you automate there pretty quickly. And the second part could be some businesses that say, we're going to automate 80% of the problem and we'll give 20% to the humans. That's another recipe for success. Like, they know that the line is not everything, but most of the things here will be done by the AI, and we'll have humans in the loop completing the other 20%. And that informs the execution strategy, that informs the change management, that informs the deployment, and that manages the expectations, both on the developer side, the consultant side, but also the employee and the client in terms of what they can expect. So if you try and do a 100% job, I know you're setting everyone up for failure.
Interesting. So we're moving towards 80-20. That's great. And I know we're seeing some questions here. So to be mindful of the time also, before we open it up to the questions, can you tell the audience where they can learn more about Qatalog and just learn more from you personally?
So the catalog is on qatalog.com, QATALOG.com, which is the website. You can get a demo, or you can speak to our team, and who can show you exactly what I just showed you, but a lot more in detail. The others, I'm on Twitter at TARIQRAUF, or on LinkedIn. Please connect with me. Happy to chat to you there.
Great. So yeah, we'll open it up. So the first question I've seen is, thanks for sharing your knowledge and the insight. You mentioned all verticals are adopting AI. Which verticals are the ones which adopt AI the most, and why?
Operational verticals. So things like, if you take but when you say vertical, you have vertical within the business, or you have vertical within industries. And so heavy operational verticals are consulting, law, engineering, and product, all these things that require a lot of internal collaboration and document production, because they're adopting AI a lot faster than everyone else. And
then within an organization,
it's the operational work streams of HR, analytics, research, product and engineering. Product and engineering, of course, because of Copilot. You have a lot of almost 40 to 45% of all code written now is through Copilot. So they were the first sort of success stories, but now the others are starting to follow through with more operational use cases.
And marketing, of course, because ChatGPT and everything content, right?
Yeah.
So the next question is, what will be the next steps for Qatalog in the current dynamic environment, and what can we expect from it in the close future?
So you will see what I just showed you was a system understanding what I wanted, and it went and did the work of finding it and coming back to me with like, here's what you're looking for. That looks like search, but what it is actually doing underneath is a whole bunch of automation on pinging a bunch of systems, breaking down the content, understanding the intent, putting it all together, and then coming back to you with a summary. So there's going to be more automation not just retrieval, but also going and doing things, conducting workflows end to end with the human in the loop sort of experience. So if I, for example, show you in a second. Great question, by the way. It allows me to demonstrate some of the things we're up to in Catalog. Thank you for asking. So this, for example, what I just showed you, you ask a question, comes back with an answer. But if you say things like evaluate an investment, and there's a workflow behind it, what we'll show is like, do you want to run the workflow evaluating an investment? And you can add the investment memo files, go through the journey, and the AI will produce the first pass of that specific part of the workflow, and then the human can add their layers on top of that, if that makes sense. So you can edit what the AI produces, and that's chained into the next part. The prompt behind this could be evaluate the memo and come back with the growth trajectory, and the human can then introduce their perspective on that request. And so this back and forth between human AI and a workflow is something that we are extremely excited about. And so again, the whole equation of this experience is very specific problems that are solved by AI. And then we take all of that and then smash it into a single outcome of an evaluation report, which has a generation from the AI, but also the human's input in the process. So there's a lot of control in how the entire journey just happened. And so this interface is something that we're looking to sort of bring to the market fairly soon. So there's a lot of automation, there's a lot of human in the loop experiences, all the fun stuff that's post chat that we think, the industry is now ripe for. We're looking forward to bringing that into the market.
Great. So exciting. So doesn't look like we have more questions, and actually that's perfect. We're right on time. So thanks everyone for joining in. Really appreciate your questions and presence. And also thanks, Tariq, for taking the time. I know it's a busy time for you guys, so we really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us. And we're excited to bring you more thought-provoking conversations, so definitely stay in the loop. We're going to be sending some emails about upcoming webinars with other amazing visionaries. So definitely let us know if there are any topics as well that you would like to know more about. So, but definitely we will have everything kind of laid out on our website, which is impactaigroup.com. And you can go to the webinar sections, which will have the entire kind of upcoming webinar. So thanks again for joining, and we hope to see you soon, everyone.
Thank you for having me, and speak soon, Steffen and Iman.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tariq. Have a great evening. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.